is a Northern Ireland mountain range home to a strange 8-foot tall creature walking on two legs. In December 2015, a man was out exploring a very remote and isolated area of the Sperrin Mountains in Northern Ireland when he encountered something that still baffles him to this day. Speaking to longtime UK-based Bigfoot researcher Debbie Crossley Hatswell, the man, in his mid-50s, claims that he was out doing some winter hiking in the Sperrin Mountains. The visibility was clear. After climbing to the tops of 3 densely forested hills, he began heading back up a hill towards a tree line to where he'd parked his car. That's when he noticed something very tall and large moving behind him about 1 kilometer away. It was heading down the hill towards him on a route he had just taken. Although not easily spooked, the man recognized that if it wanted to, it could have easily caught up with him. It was taller than a 6-foot person at the distance he observed it, and he gathered that the thing he was looking at was more like 8 feet tall. The fact that he was carrying ski poles and not a gun made him feel even more vulnerable. The area I walk in was wet, but no river, with some very marshy ground on my first hill near my starting point up past 2 forests. The hill is known as Carnley West Top and is 505 meters high. The big thing was coming towards me as I left Carnley West Top and was walking towards Mullabane Summit, he told Hatswell. The thing I'd seen, for want of a better word, was out in the opening, following a fence down a hill I had just left in the same direction, and it was moving fast on 2 legs. Further, he was adamant that what he saw was not human. He just kept repeating it couldn't have been a person. It was too big, and it walked through the swamp like it was nothing, Hatswell told Cryptozoology News. Another strange aspect to the story, the man claimed that when he arrived in the area, he spotted several camouflaged hunters lurking in the woods. I did see them with a map out, which I thought was highly unusual, as local hunters of game know their area and don't carry maps, he said. After he began his hike into the mountain, he noted the mysterious hunters quickly left the area. He gathered whomever they were, they certainly weren't from the area. In some of my previous videos, I have talked about instances where hikers and hunters in remote areas stumble upon these strange military-type men in the woods. One has to wonder who these camouflaged men were and what they were doing in the Sperrin Mountains that winter day. Were they just lost hunters, or were they in the area for another reason? In 2010, a man in the southwest area of the Sperrin Mountains came across a strange sight while hiking the trail. He claims that during his hike he came upon several steel structures that looked like mine entrances. He continued uphill past a small communications mast and was greeted by the strange sight of a flatbed of a lorry in the middle of the hill. According to his post at Mountain Views Forum, he suddenly had the uneasy sense that somebody or something was watching him, and he quickly left the area. Also in 2010, another bizarre story involving the Sperrin Mountains began to make the rounds of the various news outlets. A series of grisly, mutilated animals that nobody, including the government agencies brought in to investigate, could find an answer for. April 2015, 58-year-old Gerald McLaughlin, who farms high up in the Sperrin Mountains near Feeney, Dungiven, with his wife and sons, awoke on Good Friday to discover that 2 of his young lambs had their tongues mysteriously cut off. Sadly, this was just the latest in a string of gruesome attacks on his sheep going back nearly 2 decades. Gerald was losing on average a sheep a week. In the 3 weeks leading up to that Good Friday, 15 sheep on his property had been found with their tongues mysteriously cut out. From there, the animals either bled to death or Gerald had no alternative but to have them put down. Our farm buildings are a short distance up the road from our dwelling house. When we went home on Friday for some coffee, someone or something entered the shed where the sheep are housed and cut the tongues from the 2 young lambs. It is crazy to think who or what is carrying out this act of cruelty. Every time we visit the sheep, we wonder how many have fell victim to this mysterious perpetrator, he said. We have tried many times to catch whoever or whatever is cutting the tongues off, but we have never found anything. I even employed an outside security firm to come in and look after the place overnight. They found nothing, and it cost me a fortune. Over the years, Gerald has repeatedly reached out to the authorities, including the Department of Agriculture, USPCA, local vets, and even the police. All of the services have carried out their own investigations, but none of them can shed any light on what is going on, and the strange mutilations continue to happen. Not surprisingly, some of the officials have sought to lay the blame on birds, something McLaughlin finds to be not only silly, but insulting. They claim that it's birds taking the tongues out of them, but I'm sure beyond all reasonable doubt that isn't right. And if it was birds, why only my farm? There is a farmer on one side with 300 sheep and another on the other with a couple of hundred ewes with only a wire fence between us, and it isn't happening to them. Utterly baffled by the incidents, the police service of Northern Ireland continue to investigate. The Department of Agriculture and even the Minister, Michelle O'Neill, are aware of the brutality occurring on the McLaughlin's farm, but to date they haven't been able to help him. The two agencies are doing their best to monitor the situation. Mysterious animal mutilations, strange men, and vehicles sighted by hikers, and the appearance of an 8-foot-tall creature. There is definitely something going on in Ireland's Sperrin Mountains, something that over time, I hope, investigators will be able to get to the bottom of.